When my brother John and I were little, we used to play this game called Guess Where You Are. John would take a bandana or a dish towel and he'd wrap it around my head to cover my eyes, and then he'd spin me around and around and around, and then he would lead me somewhere else in our big old house. He would just lead me by the arm, and I would have to trust my brother that he wouldn't run me into the dining room table or into a wall or a doorknob, or that my brother wouldn't send me sailing down a flight of stairs. But he'd always safely take me to another place in the house, and then he would step away from me and I'd be standing there alone, unable to see, and I would get 3 guesses to try to figure out where I was in our house. And it was the strangest thing how hard it was to figure out where I was. I mean, here I was in the only home that I had ever known, the only place that I had ever called home, and I could not figure out where I was. I was so confused after all that spinning around. I knew every square inch of that house, but I had no idea where I was. After a while, I'd sort of get the hang of the game, and I began to learn that I didn't always need to see with my eyes to know where I was. I could use and trust other evidence and start paying attention to everything else around me to know. I began to use my senses. I would hear water in the kitchen sink, or the hum of the refrigerator, or underneath my feet I would feel a certain rug, and I knew where I was. I knew where I was because I had come to trust the certainty of everything else around me.
I'm not quite accustomed to my dreams coming true, and I don't know what to make of what you're making me. And I don't know where I'll be in 5 minutes or 5 years, but I know you will be there, just like you're here.
That game of Guess Where I Am is a perfect snapshot of my faith life, and maybe you can relate. I feel like so much of my life I've worn blinders. I've been unable to see and just been kind of groping around in the dark and never quite sure what was right in front of me, and I've been prone to doubt and wander and second guess. If faith is being sure of what you hope for and certain of what you do not see, then I guess that you could say that my faithometer was running on fumes for many, many years. A friend asked me the other day, "Jennifer, when did you become a believer?" And I didn't even really know what to say. I had spun around and around, and only by the grace of God did I not go flying down the staircase of life. I was an adult, scared of the dark, and I did not know where to go to find the light. But believe me, I wanted to. I was desperate to believe. I hear a lot of people talk about real, true, believing faith moving from the head into the heart. For me, it was the complete opposite. I wanted to believe in my heart, but I couldn't believe it in my head because I couldn't see it. So I don't know if you would have called me an unbeliever. Maybe you could call me an I want to believer. I wanted to believe. I did. So I had to get used to life without seeing with my eyes. I had to learn to see with my other senses. I had to learn to see with my heart. I am a believer, and I can look back on my life now and see that God was there all the time. In her book, 1,000 Gifts, Ann Voskamp writes, "God reveals himself in rear-view mirrors, and I've an inkling that there are times when we need to drive a long, long distance before we can look back and see God's back in the rear-view mirror. Maybe sometimes about as far as heaven, that kind of distance. Then to turn and see his face." I've been looking back in the rear-view mirror of my own life, and I see the beauty of God. I see the evidence of grace, and I see that I was led by my arm when I couldn't see. No, I was carried. I was carried, really. And I can see how he honors that promise in Scripture, the one that says, draw near to God and he will draw near to you. A friend of mine who is a songwriter, her name is Helen Martin, she wrote this lovely song called Just Like You're Here. And it reminds me that God has always been with me, even when I wasn't paying attention. Just as surely as God is with me right now, just as surely as he was with me through all of my life, he is with me tomorrow. In her song, she writes these words, I don't know where I'll be in 5 minutes or 5 years, but I know that you'll be there just like you are here.